I'm Zach Feldman. I'm a lead software engineer on the marketplace team here at Framework, and I mostly work on the website at frame.work, but I also obviously love all of our hardware and gear, love experimenting with it and dogfooding all of our new products. So I decided to sort of build one of my own projects here using our Cooler Master mainboard case. And so what I've got here is the said mainboard case. I've got my last generation mainboard, hard drive, SSD, RAM, everything you need really to make your computer work. But the addition here is these two Ethernet expansion cards. And so this lets me have some redundancy on my internet connection. And the reason why is that I actually am going to turn this Cooler Master mainboard into a Framework laptop mainboard home server. So there's three main parts to this project. The first one is assembling the hardware. So obviously you're going to need the Framework Laptop 13 mainboard, you're going to need some memory, some RAM, a few expansion cards. First part is just putting everything together so you have an actual computer. Second part is loading the software onto the machine so that it can actually build web applications and deploy them locally with Docker. That's using Dokku. And then I would say part three for this project is going to be actually hooking up that Dokku installation to the wider internet through Cloudflare D and using Cloudflare services. All right, so here I am on a fresh Ubuntu 22.04 installation. And this is on my actual Framework Laptop 13 mainboard server box itself. I'm not on a laptop, I'm on the actual server that I just set up. And yeah, you're going to need Ubuntu 22.04 specifically, as that is what is compatible with Dokku. So let's see what kernel we're running. 6.8, that doesn't really matter, but it does matter. LSB release -r returns 22.04. So we're running Ubuntu 22.04. Awesome. All right, then the next step is we need to install Dokku. So let's follow their instructions for that. Getting started with Dokku. What is Dokku? Well, we already know that. Install Dokku. All right, so to install the latest stable version, you can run the following shell commands. Looks like we are going to wget a file, and then we're going to run a command. So this is all stuff you're going to just run in the command line. I'll hit copy. And by the way, if you are security minded, it's a good idea to take a look at what is actually in this file, bootstrap.sh, and make sure that it's not running anything you wouldn't expect. But I trust the developers of Dokku. I've actually gone for a beer with them before, and so I'm going to go ahead and just hit paste. Okay, need to enter my sudo password. All right, and then this is going to install. It may take a moment here. Okay, installation will continue in 10 seconds. They're just warning you that if you have installed Nginx before, you may want to be careful here, but if this is a fresh installation, there's nothing to worry about. All right, it's going to start by installing Docker. That's an important part of Dokku. All of the applications that you are going to have running on your server here are going to be running inside of Docker with only their network interface exposed. You can see that it's running apt-get install -y, which means just install this stuff and don't ask me if I want to install it for Docker CE and a bunch of other Docker-specific items. All right. It's probably adding some extra repositories for Dokku to apt, and it's going to install those. Still going. All right, I saw this error the last time I installed it, and it was fine. Key file, idrsa.pub not found. I think we need to generate it, but that's okay. And now we're actually running something in Docker. We're pulling a few image layers. I think Heroku-ish is the Docker image that they use to build the application Docker images. It's sort of the base image. So we're pulling that and extracting that. Luckily, we're on Ethernet, so this goes pretty fast. I've also got a gigabit connection, so that's good. Okay, almost done here. Generating a secure key, some kind of secure key for Dokku to use. That's what's going on here. Almost there. Still going. Okay, adding Dokku to group ADM. All right, very good. So now to make sure that Dokku is actually installed, now that we ran the first command, we're just going to run Dokku and see if it returns anything. And we get something back. So that's good. That means that Dokku is installed versus unknown command Dokku or something like that. Very good. All right, so then after we've installed Dokku, our next step is going to be installing SSH on the server. So we're installing the OpenSSH server, and that'll let us eventually open up this machine so that other machines in our network can SSH to it, meaning basically open a connection to it remotely. All right, it got installed, and now we'll just make sure that SSH is installed correctly. Okay, it looks like it is, and it's running. Very good. Awesome. Okay, and then we're going to have to hop over to our client machine, aka my laptop, to do some initial further setup there. So I'll see you over there. Okay, so now I'm back on my client machine, aka the machine that I'm planning to push apps from to my server. So on this machine, what I need to do is get my SSH key and then SSH to the Dokku server, and then add that SSH key to the server. And then that way, the next time I SSH, I don't have to enter my password, and I can deploy without having to enter my password. So what I'm going to need from this machine is the public SSH key for this machine. So I already have one generated actually at .ssh/id ed.pub. Make sure you put .pub. You don't want to share your private key, and it's right there. And then what I'm going to do is get the IP address from the other machine real quick. So that's actually over here on the server. Very good. So hostname -i. Very good. So it looks like it is 192.168.5.185. Okay, so now that I've got that IP address, I will go ahead and SSH to Zach at 192.168.5.185. 5.185. Okay, I actually set up this I set up this computer yesterday, and so now it's like, why did this it's basically confused because I set up this computer once before and it has the same IP address, and now it's wondering, why is the computer different? So let me quickly fix that. It's in known hosts. Okay. So again, we'll take this public key and then we'll SSH, and now it's going to let me, and enter my password. Okay, so now I'm actually on the remote box itself. You can tell because my prompt actually changed. Cool. All right, now that I'm on the remote box, what I want to do is add this public key that I got before to the to Dokku, first of all, and then also to the authorized keys for SSH login. So here's my key. Copied it. I'm going to type echo, paste in the key name, and then sudo Dokku SSH keys add admin. Okay, so that's done. And then same thing, echo, and then quotes, and then adding it to the end of authorized keys. And this file may not exist, which is why you heard that sort of dinging sound. But yeah, I just did that. And so now what this should allow me to do is basically repeat the same SSH command, except this time not have to enter a password. So to test that, type exit, and then SSH again. And look, no password prompt. So that's why we add our key. Also makes it much easier to push your apps later on. So, okay, so now we've got our key all set up, and we're basically ready at this point now that Dokku is installed and our key is set up to push our first app to Dokku. So what app should we actually push? Good question. Let's go back to our host machine here. Here we go. And I actually have a simple app already. And what this app is, it's basically a Sinatra app, which is much easier framework than Ruby on Rails, very stripped back, really just for HTTP routing and like not much else. So basically my app is get/do hello world. And so what I expect the app to do when it runs is when you hit / you see hello world, and that's about it. But this does give us a pretty good example application to use here. So we've got that. We've got our config.ru file so that Dokku knows how to actually bring this application up. But you could use a Python app. You could use a Node app, really anything that you normally deploy to a platform as a service you could use with this. So we've got this simple app. And I'm going to go ahead and push it to Dokku. So git push Dokku at, and then the IP address of your server. So 192.168. Let's see, 5.185. Very good. And then we put a colon, the name of the app as it's known to Dokku, and then main is the name of the branch. So what we're doing here is we're using Git, the version control system, to push up the latest version of our app to our actual remote server on our home network. And when I push this, it should actually start trying to build the application. Here we go. Now it's using what's called a build pack, which is a set of instructions that, given a certain type of application, knows how to actually build that application, bootstrap it, and get it to the point where it can actually accept requests. So here it goes. Setting some configuration variables, compiling. We didn't specify a Ruby version, so it's mad at us, but we could do that later on. And then it's installing all of the Ruby gems, which are libraries that Ruby uses to run the application. Very cool. Almost done here. It runs a health check on the app to see if it's up. And then it starts the server, in this case Puma, which is a server for Ruby applications. And there it is. Application deployed. Simple-app.zack test123. Very good. All right, so our app is deployed. That's good. But how do we actually see if it's up and see if it's working? Well, let's hop over to the server machine to check on that. So here we are back on the server machine. And basically, let me actually minimize this. Okay. So here we are back on the server machine, and it's basically the way that we left it. And what I'm going to do now is actually see if the app that I pushed is working or not. So the first step in doing that is to check Docker. Now remember that what Dokku does is it basically wraps Docker and lets you very easily create applications that are hosted in Docker containers and then have them exposed via the network. So since Dokku uses Docker underneath the hood, we can actually run Docker PS to see any processes that Docker has up. And then we can run Docker inspect on the container ID right here. And it'll actually tell us what the IP address is of the app locally. So here it is, IP address. And remember, we're running on port 5000. That's the port that Sinatra apps run on by default. And if everything works correctly, then when I hit this and hit it at port 5000, I should see hello world. And there it is, hello world. All right. So that means that our app is up and running, and that's really nice. But the problem here is, how do we actually go from having it here on my local machine with a local IP address to having it on the actual open web where people can see my hello world app? And that's kind of the next step here. All right, so for that, we're going to hop back over to our machine. Okay, so now we're back on our client machine, basically the machine where we're going to be pushing apps from to our server. And from here, what I'm going to do is set things up with Cloudflare so that it hooks up to my server and my apps are actually accessible on the public internet. So I'm going to log into my Cloudflare account. Here it is. Okay. And then what I need to do is find my account ID. So I'll go here to the site I'm going to use for this example, djmusac.com. I was a DJ. I like to say I'm a recovering DJ as a bit of a joke. And, I only DJ at my friends' weddings at this point, basically, but I have a DJ website with some mixes on it. So I'll use that as my sort of sample domain name for this project. So over here on Cloudflare, over here at this exact screen, you need to have a domain set up on Cloudflare. On the bottom right, there's actually a quick account ID field. So you want to copy that. And then what we want to do is set this on our server in a specific place. So remember how I said before that we're able to easily SSH to our server now. So I'll go ahead and go up and find that SSH command. There it is. And now I'm actually on the remote server. But the nice thing here is that I'm on my local machine with the browser so that I have my Cloudflare session, all of the things I need to get set up here. But I can actually do stuff remotely now with this other machine because I've set up SSH. So, all right, so now I need to create a file. Let's see, and I'm going to use Vim. So I'm going to first have to install it. All right, there it goes. And Vim is just a text editor. So pretty simple, kind of like Sublime Text or VS Code, but a little lower level. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use Vim to create a new file at home/Dokku, and that's going to be called .cf tunnel env. Okay, and then I'm going to set my CF account, can't spell today, UUID, and that'll be equal to the value that I just got. And notice how I'm putting export before it. That's so that when this file is sourced later on by the plugin that uses it to sync your websites to Cloudflare, it'll actually export the variable and be able to use the variable. So the next one I'm going to need is the CF tunnel UUID. Okay, so where do I find that? So what you want to do is navigate to Zero Trust. Here we go. Networks, tunnels, and then create a tunnel. We're going to want to use Cloudflare D. We'll name the tunnel something like My Cool New Ton. You can name it whatever you want. And then it's going to ask us to install and run connectors to the tunnel. And in this case, what that means is installing Cloudflare D. Cloudflare D is a daemon, which is a program that runs in the background that will keep our server and its websites actually connected to the open web. So all you need to do this is hit copy. Let's exit here, WQ:WQ. And remember that I'm actually in this terminal window on the remote machine. So this will take effect there. Paste it in. And Cloudflare D is installed successfully. And I can check that by checking systemctl, aka systemd. And it's active and running. Awesome. Okay, so now we have a tunnel here, but it doesn't have any routes. And that's actually what the plugin takes care of for you automatically. So if we go back to tunnels, well, first we want to save this, yes. We can actually leave without doing this for now, that's fine. We go back to tunnels, and this is my cool new tunnel, and here's the tunnel ID, and that's the next thing that we need. Okay, so sudo vim home dokku.cftunnelenv. There's the tunnel ID, and then the last thing we need is the auth token. Okay, so to get that, what we want to do is go back to our Cloudflare account. We want to go to API keys, API tokens. We want to create a new token, a custom token, call it Dokku deploy tunnel modification or some other descriptive name. And then we need to give it some permissions here. So the permissions that we're going to need are Cloudflare tunnel. Let's see, I believe these are under zone. Cloudflare tunnel. Here it is. Cloudflare tunnel edit. And then we also want to add load balancing monitors and pools. For some reason, this is required. I couldn't tell you why. And then you can actually set it to expire if you'd like, but since this is just a demo, I'm going to delete this afterwards. Here's the token. And then make sure that you copy this token and store it somewhere securely, like a password manager or the file we're about to put it in, because they're not going to let you see it again. All right, there it is. And we'll write out :WQ. Now we have CF account UUID, CF tunnel UUID, and CF auth token set, and they are set in home dokku.cf tunnel m, just like the README for the Dokku CF tunnel update plugin calls for. Now, what is this plugin? It's a plugin that I built, actually, specifically to keep your Dokku apps and their, let me find it here, Dokku CF tunnel update, to keep your Dokku apps and the websites contained within them correctly connected to Cloudflare tunnels and expose them to the open internet. So I've made this pretty easy. All you need to do is set those environment variables, and then you can install this plugin, and your Dokku app should hopefully be exposed to the public internet. So let's try that. All right, so notice how it says you need Cloudflare D. We installed that already. You also need to install Ruby, and our server actually doesn't have that, so we're going to need to install that first. Again, here we are SSH to the server, ruby-v, so there is no Ruby installed. We're going to install RBENV first. This is a Ruby version manager, basically, that lets you install any version of Ruby. Okay. And then we're going to want to git clone Ruby build. And what this will do is give us the latest versions of Ruby. Whoops, I need to make this directory first. Okay, and then we want to install Ruby 3.0.2. That's what this plugin was tested with. It actually will say that right here. So we want to make sure we use the same exact version, although newer versions will probably work fine. All right, so this will probably take 2 or 3 minutes. We need to make Ruby from the C++ source code, and then install OpenSSL and all the other dependencies. It's just going to basically take a moment here to install Ruby itself. Once this is done, we'll go ahead and install the plugin. Almost done. Still making. Now, while we're waiting for Ruby to build, one of the last steps we have to do is add a CNAME record to our domain name on Cloudflare that points to the Cloudflare tunnel. And so it's going to be of this format. We'll go over to Cloudflare. We'll go to the djmusac.com website, the DNS records. And you'll see I already have a CNAME record here, but you would just need to add one if you don't have one with the type CNAME, the name of your site, and then the content. Let's see here. It's the UUID of the tunnel .cfargotunnel.com. So let's go grab that. All right, so we'll go to Zero Trust. We will go to Networks, Tunnels, and then My Cool New Tunnel, and then copy the tunnel ID. Or I could have copied it from the credentials I copied before. All right, so here's the tunnel ID, .cfargotunnel.com. Hit save. All right, and hopefully knowing Cloudflare, this should be relatively immediate. We're still installing Ruby here, running a make install, so almost there. Okay, and we have Ruby. If I type ruby-v, you'll see I'm running Ruby 3.0.2. Very good. All right, so I went through the steps slightly out of order, but they're all in the Dokku CF tunnel update getting started. Install Cloudflare D, install Ruby, set your credentials, and then run an app deployment or restart. I'm almost there. Last thing I have to do that I haven't done yet is install the plugin itself. Let's do that. Okay, that was easy. And then all I have to do, supposedly, is restart my application, and fingers crossed, we should be able to see it on the public web at djmusac.com. So Dokku PS restart, sample app. Oh, whoops. Dokku apps, simple app. Dokku PS restart, simple app. And it'll redeploy the app, which should make the plugin work. And this plugin should run every time you deploy, every time your app builds, and make sure that things are up to date. There's also an option, if you look at the README, to ensure that if your machine restarts, it also will contact Cloudflare and make sure things are looking good. So that's if you want it to work persistently between restarts. There's a little more configuration required. Okay, this is good. So the plugin will actually tell you if the API request to Cloudflare to set the IP address and everything was successful, and in this case it was. We see a 200. And then if we actually go back to Cloudflare and we go to My Cool New Tunnel, you'll see now that it's been updated like so. There's one final problem, though, actually here, which is that the public host name for my app is simpleapp.zactest123, and that's because I never set a domain inside of Dokku for it. So to fix that last problem, Dokku domains remove, or let's add first to simple app. All right, and then let's remove the other domain. Simple app. Okay, so this is the other domain. Dokku domains remove from simple app, that name. Okay, so now if we type Dokku domains report, whoopsies, simple app, then I get back only djmusac.com. And then I'm just going to do another Dokku PS restart, and that should rebuild my app. And then fingers crossed, the correct domain name will be used here on the tunnel. All right, we're doing our health checks. All right, the server has started. We're checking our network configuration. All right, we got another 200 from Cloudflare. And in fact, if I flip over, oh, it changed. Look at that. So Cloudflare has some pretty cool tech here that's just refreshing stuff in the background without me even hitting the button. And then fingers crossed, if I hit djmusac.com, there it is, hello world. So what this means is that requests to djmusac.com are now resolving through my Cloudflare tunnel to my Framework Laptop 13 mainboard server and actually serving my website through my server. To exemplify this, what I'll do next is actually just remove the Ethernet cable. Boom. It's actually unplugged. Here it is. If I hit refresh, there's a bad gateway. Look at that. So that is kind of proof that this is actually running from that machine. I'm going to plug it back in. Fingers crossed it'll come back, but eventually it'll come back once it connects back to the public internet. But that's basically how this is done. And now our app is up. We can actually install HTOP and get a sense for how many resources is it using. Is this taking up a lot of system resources? And you can see here, using a bit of RAM, but not a ton. We're using 6 gigs out of 31. We're not swapping at all. System usage is pretty low. So this gives you a sense of the kind of system usage. And the site is back that you would see when hosting a site like this that's just really tiny. And it gives you a sense of the kind of headroom that you have left, maybe the types of apps you might be able to host, the size of them, above and beyond this, depending on your amount of RAM, CPU, etc. But just to give you an idea. All right, and that is it. Our app is now up on the public web, and it's being hosted through our Framework laptop mainboard server. And now I can send it to all my friends, and they can see my cool DJ website. So best of luck putting together your Framework Laptop 13 mainboard server. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And, again, I wouldn't probably host frame.work on one of these, at this point, unless it had 96 gigs of RAM and, just totally maxed out specs and all of that. But it works really well for hosting those hobby projects and trying to get rid of those little cloud provider bills and just being able to host locally. So if you end up building this project, I would love to see it. I'd love to see you post on our community. I'd love to see you make your own videos about it, your own content, and show off your new server. And generally, we would just love to hear from you and see what you're doing with your Framework Laptop 13 mainboard and Cooler Master case, what kind of websites you're hosting, what types of other projects you might think of to use with this type of setup. In general, yeah, we're just really excited to see when folks actually use our products this way. And I personally am really excited that one of my projects has the potential to be used by a lot of our users and a lot of our customers and make people really happy and maybe lower their cloud hosting bills. So